George.
Yeah, Madison, I have used your free tax service, and it's an excellent resource for residents in Park City, so I appreciate what you do and help folks.
And it's not just for residents in Park City, but in Frederick County.
Okay, thank you.
All right, not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Madison, I appreciate it. Next, we'll hear from our Assistant City Administrator, Dana Walden. Dana?
Thank you. Wanted to give an update on our flag event, which is this weekend coming up from 4 to 6. And it's going to be a very exciting time for us to show our new flag and talk about that and to celebrate as a community. We've been watching the weather because we know an outdoor event in February was something that you couldn't really tell what was going to happen and had space heaters and things, but looking at how the weather is turning at the end of this week, the Best Western has graciously reached out and let us use the atrium at Best Western. So we will be updating information to people tomorrow, getting that information out, and we're going to move indoors there instead of being very cramped here. We're having a live band, and it would be very loud in the chambers here, so it's going to be a great opportunity. We'd like for people to come out. Once again, there's going to be a live band. We're going to show the new flag, and there are going to be free items that we're going to give to people. The first 200 people will have an opportunity to have a cap of their choice. Pride is going to be there serving hot chocolate and coffee in flag mugs. So it's going to be a great time to come out and celebrate as a community.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Dana? Ben?
Yeah, just to go along with what Dana said, I know I'm going to piggyback also off here just how the mayor recognized Dana. I've come up here several times in the evening. I've been around and seen Dana here working countless hours as doing her job as assistant city administrator. And so it's a very well-deserved honor to be recognized because I know you commit so much to our city. I want to say thank you for that. And part of that is this flag branding and design there. And it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to see the flag revealed. So remember, tell your friends, tell your family, bring your friends, bring your family, get a coffee mug, get a sticker, whatever you got to do. Just come on out. It's going to be a lot of fun as we bring this portion to a close. So thank you, Dana, for all you've done in that.
Thanks, Dana. Not seeing anything else. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Jim? And Ben?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item A under new business, which is consider an appointment to the Stormwater Management Advisory Board. Terry, do you want to go ahead and come on up? So Mr. Ford has helped us on many different tasks within the city, and he has graciously volunteered his services again to help us with the Stormwater Management Advisory Board. Terry, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Terry Ford, I think I've probably met all of you at one time or another, or several times, and lived in Park City about 17 years, and just got interested in city functions and stuff, and try to help out where I can. Any questions?
We appreciate all the help you've done because you've done a lot for us. Brandy?
I want to thank you for when I came and asked you if you would step up and be on this committee for Representative Ward 2 that you accepted. And I do want you to please tell your wife we greatly appreciate it and letting you come back out to the city and do some work for us.
She's glad to get away from me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Terry.
Okay, Ben?
Sure, Terry, I just want to say thank you. Worked with you on the flag committee, and then I know you've done a whole lot, and so thank you for your service to our city and your willingness to continue. And so with that, I would make a motion to approve the appointment of Terry Ford to the Stormwater Management Advisory Board.
Okay, Jim? Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Terry.
much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ford. That brings us to item B, which is consider expenditures as recommended by the Park and Recreation Advisory Board and Tree Board for the RC track. Kyle?
I've got Alex Williamson here with me also. Talking with him. Previous meeting, or I'm Kyle Wassinger with the Park Board, and
Alex Williamson.
Alex Williams. At our previous meeting, we discussed placing an RC track in McLean. Bruce Helgberg and I went through the park, and the kind of really only and best spot we found for it was right where the roller rink sits. I know that would mean tearing down the walls, and for proper drainage, we might need to tear out some of the concrete also. But when consulting Bruce, he says the rink doesn't get used that often, and there is a lot of vandalism damage and wood rot on the walls. I went through, there's currently 10 sheets of plywood and a gate that need replaced on it as it sits now. If we were to tear that out, Alex is able to reuse some of the lumber when constructing the RC track and also the fencing on the ends. Another pro about having it there is there's already water and electricity to it, so we won't have to run any lines. The lights are already there. We just think it's a good place for it. I can let Alex kind of talk
bet.
about more what he's wanting to do.
But in my proposal here that I brought to the Park and Recreations Committee, you know, I'm looking to build a top-notch facility in the Midwest. I want to bring people from all around the Midwest to Park City to enjoy this nice town you guys have here. You know, I've traveled racing for the past this is my 4th year. I spent 35 plus nights last year in hotels myself traveling. This is quite a big hobby. I even call it a sport to people, and in the Midwest there is quite a following of these people. With this proposal, if you see here on the back page of a little map, aerial map of where I would like to propose to put that track. And technically, yes, it is over that piece of concrete. I don't want to tear up all that concrete. I'd like to only tear up about maybe roughly 60% of it and utilize the other 40%. The lights, the water, it's all sitting right there for me to be able to use this and make this facility one of the best in the Midwest. I've gone out and proposed this to a couple business friends that I have, and I've already got one guy that says he's going to come out and give me $10,000 to get the ball rolling with this project. I have a couple meetings this week with a couple other local businesses that want to also propose maybe a little donation to help get this ball rolling. Within this, you see some stats and whatnot. In that stats, I showed St. Louis Dirt Burners, which is St. Louis, Kansas. They have a track.
Page, do you have us on that?
Excuse me, that is, on the 4th page here.
Okay.
The benefits to Park City, Kansas. That St. Louis Dirt Burners is a racetrack within a city park, just like what we're proposing here. Very, very similar facility. And in 2017, they had their Fataba OS Nitro Challenge. It brought in 234 entries. With that entries, there's 124 unique drivers. With that, with my experience in the industry, half of that, or maybe a little bit more than half, is people traveling from out of the region, coming in there, spending money, doing great things for that city. I'd like to be able to do something very similar for Park City.
Okay. Typically, when something comes through the park board, usually gets put on the consent agenda, and I felt like there was probably going to be some debate around the location, especially tearing out concrete. So that's why we have a line item, and I've asked Kyle to come here tonight so we can kind of pitch this, see where the council is on this. Tom?
Well, I was going to say, I listened to one of these several years ago on the BMX track.
Yes, sir.
And they came in and said, for $20,000, we can give you this class act. We spent $250,000 up there and there's nothing happened yet. And I don't want to get into another one of those, and I don't want to lose an asset we already have with the hockey court there
Yes, sir.
to put something in that may or may not go. I would be more than happy to buy into this if it was sitting somewhere else other than there. Is there anywhere else in the park?
We went through McLean, and
Pardon?
I said Bruce and I went through McLean a couple weeks ago, and this is the only place in that park that won't interfere with the disc golf course, other than south of the BMX track, which Bruce told us that it holds water all the time, so there's major drainage issues.
What would it take to make it not hold water? I don't know how much water is retained in there.
It's probably, to be honest with you, I haven't went out and measured, but it's probably a good 2 to 3 foot
Okay.
lower in that particular section than the rest of the land. So it'd take quite a bit of dirt coming in and grade that at a natural grade, so we have natural runoff there.
Well,
Then another issue about south.
I'm not opposed to what you're trying to do here. I'm just not real happy with where you're trying to do it.
Yeah, I understand.
One thing also I've talked about with Kyle here, and it's, yes, I want to tear out half of that concrete, but I also want to utilize some of that as well. Not just building an off-road facility here. I want to take a piece of this land. It doesn't take a lot, but there's a big interest here in Park City and Wichita and the surrounding area, what they call rock crawling. What we're doing here is off-road 8-scale racing, 10-scale racing. These guys, they basically set up rocks and take their little cars and crawl over that. I would like to utilize some of that. And within tearing down that rink, I come from a recycling background. I have a recycling company for the last 5 years. I do electronic recycling. I've been in business 12 years personally. Grew up in business, and I want to reuse a lot of that wood, the metal, the fence. There would be no waste going of tearing that out. I want to reuse a lot of that towards this new facility.
Okay, Tom, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Jim?
We don't have any numbers on how often it's being used, but Bruce said it's not utilized very often. Correct. We do the coin dive for Fall Festival, but that could be moved to maybe the skate park next door to it. Yeah.
Dana, can you jump in real quick and just share, because it relates to what Jim's asking when you went up?
The day that we got the information that this was on the packet, and one of the reasons why it was moved off of the consent agenda was that very issue. I went up just to see what the condition of the cement would look like, and it was that day that it was really snowy and icky and very cold, and I wasn't quite looking forward to walking to the back of the park. I wasn't able to even do that because there were kids that were playing on it that day. So I can't say how frequently that happens, but it was quite a cold day, and they were back playing on it that day.
Okay, Ben?
I think one thing that'd be interesting to know, and maybe, I'm not sure if Eric or them would have, is the amount of resources we put into repairing the facility from the times it's vandalized, and not just the time of work, but also the materials that go into that there. I know that they've had to do that several times because it's been brought before the park board. Many times that we're having to invest resources back in just getting it into a presentable condition. As far as the day, anytime I've been out there, I really haven't seen anybody out there using it very often. I've heard several times from citizens who usually tell me that's the place where nothing good happens. I've heard that often from citizens, that there's some questionable at times. Now, granted, if it was icy and everything out there, it's a nice place to go slide around on. And I would do that as a kid, be more likely to go out and find a cement pad to do that on. As far as the return on investment, I would agree with Jim on this. I'm excited to see that we have about $15,000 committed to this project, which would significantly lower the amount of output from the city for this. In so much that the city theoretically, I mean, depending on where it comes out with the breaking of the cement, we're looking at being maybe a third of the cost coming from the city. The rest would be coming from private funds. So unlike the BMX track or something like that, where the city put out a larger amount, and again, questionable whether we got the return on that, this one will require significantly less output from the city and more from private foundations or private groups, which is exciting to see. So I would be in favor of this just simply for those facts. Now, if we found a location that didn't have to do that, I wouldn't be opposed necessarily either, but again, how much money are we going to put into building up the south side of that BMX track, or south of the BMX track, to be able to do this? All things considered, I trust the park board and the park employees who have looked over and have deal with the roller rink in this area. So I would be in favor of this project.
Brandy?
First, just sorry for the stupidity, but what's the difference between an RC race park and what's out at 81 Speedway?
81 Speedway, you get in the car and drive it. These, I'm standing on top of a platform. If you look on the first page there, that second picture is what they call the driver's stand. So you get up there with a remote, and you're controlling the car down on the track.
Okay, okay,
Very
That
similar
makes sense
aspect
now.
of racing.
Okay.
Because these cars are 100% like a real car. I mean, you're changing the minute little screw here, and it can change the whole way it drives. And I think it brings, I have a 9-year-old boy that races with me. Everywhere I go, I take him. It's a good father-son type of thing, and it's clean family fun.
Right.
You don't get a lot of places anymore.
okay. And then my other question is maybe for the park board, how often, because when I've gone out there, I don't see a lot of people out there using the facility that's out there now, and I have seen graffiti. How often are we having to go out there and clean it up and repair items on it?
For the roller rink? I've been on the park board for about 2.5 years, and Bruce has come, I would say, on 3 occasions, asking for money to replace the lumber on it. And as it sits right now, there's 10 sheets of plywood right now that need replaced on it due to kids hitting holes in it. And there's a gate that's completely missing off of it that needs replaced. So he says it's a constant battle with the vandalism.
I just like the idea of maybe having someone come in and be responsible for the area and help with the upkeep of it and make sure that, we have a nice facility in the park and it's not getting vandalized every, however often. So, okay, I'll be supportive of this. Thank you.
Tom?
Well, I was going to say, there was several groups of people going up there and playing roller hockey for a while. I know there were some adults and kids playing at the same time. The adults were supervising them. I've been up there before when a lot of parents had their kids out there teaching them how to rollerblade and roller skate. So it's not like it doesn't get used. It's just that it's not somebody there all the time. Like I said, I'd be disappointed to lose an asset that we've already got and we paid for when we could put this somewhere else, if that's possible.
Okay. George?
Yeah, I've been living around here about 10 years. I've never seen anything happen in that roller skating rink, so I think it's a good idea to at least explore with some things that we can do there. Just out of curiosity, is there how many racers are out there at a time? Does everybody just go up like a regular racetrack that race around this, or is there just a few cars at a time? And what's the noise level like?
Generally, so you'll have an electric class that's obviously a lot quieter than your nitromethane cars, but with the nitro cars, there's generally about 12 of them on the track at one time. The noise, obviously we're going to try to keep that to a minimal within daylight time. But like I was just talking with Kyle before we stood up here, we could probably, run the nitro earlier in the day than later at night to kind of keep that noise level down. But to be honest with you, it's not a lot of noise. You probably won't hear it much over what you hear from the road noise from the highway.
And what times are the races? And what days?
Generally on Saturdays.
Saturdays, okay.
We'd like to start racing during the middle of the week as well, have what they call a club race where your amateurs can kind of come out and not get beat up on and go out and have a good time. Go take that new car and go have fun with it. And talk to some guys that are out there that have been doing it for a little while, kind of help them out. So we'd like to have, at least one night a week, and then like a Saturday, every other Saturday type of thing. And then I would like to propose bringing in a bigger 2- and 3-day events. And that's where the out-of-towners come in and we'll race 2 and 3 days.
I like the benefits to the city, maybe bringing in folks to use our hotels, and I like that aspect, bringing resources in. I'd be supportive of this. I don't know if this is a location we want to use, but I'd be supportive of it. I think it's a good way to bring in revenue to the city. Thank you.
George?
The money from the city, is that coming out of the park budget?
It would,
Okay.
the city's portion. And I think there's also an opportunity for CNT to look at some of these activities, and there could be some additional funding that could come through CNT. But I think what the biggest problem with this is when we look at the expense of concrete and how much it costs to go in and tear it up. Just, that's the painful part of this conversation. And even if you look at trying to repurpose that, even looking at your aerial map that you have on the spacing, could it not be move forward on that? And could you not utilize the concrete in another way that also complements racing with like a streetcar or a different type of racing that needs to be on a smooth concrete surface? It's just, when you think about price of concrete and what it costs and the other purposes that could be used for, basketball courts, other options like that, the pain in this conversation is taking an asset and tearing it up. That's the painful part. I think everybody would agree bringing this RC track here is a great idea. I'm just not sold on the location.
Okay.
John?
You took my words. I agree. I just, man, and this concrete is not just a rough surface concrete, a driveway or something. I mean, they really, when they did the surface of that concrete, it's for skating on. I mean, it's smooth. It's a great basketball surface. I've talked about pickleball lately, getting some pickleball courts put here in town. This is ideal, and I just hate to, as Tom said and George said, location-wise, I just hate to see us tear out such a great asset, because I think replacing this, I'd be great if this was we could use this as somehow a dual purpose, but maybe it's time. I mean, we've expanded different functions of the park. I mean, we've added BMX, we've added, the skate park at one time, we added the disc golf, we've added all these things. I mean, it's time to grow, guys. Maybe it's time to dig into some CIP, and we need to find some more ground to grow, because it was a good problem. It was great. I mean, but I'm not sure if I'm really okay with tearing out something that serves a great purpose. I mean, we could throw basketball goals in there and have an almost full court basketball, it looks like. I just hate to do it. I think it's a great thing. I think the RC is fun. I used to do it when I was younger, but I just think we need to find another place to do it.
The other thing I just want to touch on what John just said was, we need more park space. And 6 months ago, I brought you guys a plan that included some 1-acre lots that gave us another 20+ acres of land for park space, and we decided we didn't want to go down that road. And here we are looking at things that we want to try to bring or put in, and we can't because we're landlocked in the park department on land. When you look at population where we are short acreage in park. My campus plan idea I want to do at the back, I want to include park in this plan. I still, with this particular project, I just can't see tearing up good concrete. Ben?
Couple things there. One, you mentioned the the roller hockey teams, and then that came in. They actually came and presented to the park board August, I want to say. And the reason that they came and presented was, well, they wanted money from the park board, and the cheapest price they wanted. And the reason they said they wanted money was because the surface was not good for rollerblading. Their skates would get scuffed up or bent or chipped up and things from skating on that surface. Was that they told us they wanted us to go in, resurface it, and then of course apply with the surrounding. But in a professional setting, they obviously wanted a higher quality for the siding or for the rink itself. But they said the cement had a lot of problems. The cheapest price they came in for us to even begin working at, I think, was, if you might have to correct me, Kyle, was like $40,000 just to begin to do some of the repairs that they were wanting. Now, that does not mean that it's not suitable for just your average person out skating, but when we talk about them, they did not like the idea of continuing to use it for the fact that the surface was rough on their skates and they'd had to replace the wheels often or do work on those. What is the feasibility here of looking to see? Because I think, again, I'm all in favor of this. I love the fact that you told us, and I know it's not hard to get, but 433 rooms in Park City. All these things, that the research that you've put into this is great. What is the feasibility of looking to see for the size that we're needing to put in, to bring dirt in along the south side of the BMX park?
That's something we'll have to look into, but another con of being on the south side of the BMX park is we're so far away from the parking lot. People are going to have to walk their cars and their equipment all the way from the parking lot.
And I've noticed with the BMX time when they're out there, I've seen tents and such set up over there along that south side from people that have, that's basically their pit area where they tune their bikes and such for their races, and that part has been just so full. Any chance of moving it further towards the west of the rink?
No, because Bruce said that there's a sewer line that goes.
There's a sewer line that goes against the hedgerow there between the BMX track and that roller rink there. Runs the whole length of that little mound that's in that area.
And hole 4 of the disc golf course is also west of there.
Okay,
South of the BMX track, we'll also have to run electric and water all the way over there too, if that's the location that we go with. And here at the roller rink, it's sitting right next to the pad. So we wouldn't have to move utilities for it.
If I may speak up, one other thing that I thought in my head is if we don't want to tear the concrete up, I'm okay with putting dirt over the top of it. So when I'm done, if I'm done, whatever it may be, you can still dig that up. There's concrete there.
And I like that idea too, and just worried about running a skid steer over it, spreading dirt, and we eventually tear up the concrete anyway. So can any part of that be used for any other type of racing?
Yes, there is what they call on-road racing, but there's just not a real big drive for it anymore.
Okay.
Not a huge drive, kind of like off-road and rock crawling.
How big a track would something like that, I'm assuming it'd be smaller, or you could?
You can make it as big as you want. I've heard people going out to Wichita, going to like one of the Spirits, one of their new concrete parking lots, putting cones out and running on-road there. To be squarely honest with you, I don't know a lot about that side of the hobby.
Okay.
So I don't want to really steer you wrong.
Okay. I was just looking any way we could try to incorporate
For sure.
use of part of it, just to. Jim?
I'm racking my brain on where else can it go when I'm relying on what you're saying from the park's perspective is this is our only spot. That's the only thing putting me on the fence, literally, is the location. I love it.
Okay.
I do have maps of all the parks, Jim, and I looked at every park in Park City. And for the size of this thing, I think this is the only location, because we don't want to put it into a residential neighborhood because of the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Some of the parks can't even accommodate a track like this. Like Osage, there's hardly any ground there, it's just a pond. Grove Street's all residential, Primrose, Jardine.
Is the size and shape, is that a sanctioned thing? Or, I noticed that there's space north of the BMX track. And that, I'm looking at the aerial thinking, well, that's probably a longer, skinnier track. And if we could move the road and stick it over there, there's this access road here, but it strikes me, there's some expense. I think that's just a gravel road. I don't think that's paved, but
It is a gravel road.
I'm wondering if you could somehow, if it's cheaper to move the road than to haul the dirt in and raise that other elevation and stick it over there.
We
Probably
talked,
don't have electricity there and water though at that spot, do you?
not over there. We talked about that on Monday also. Bruce said that access road had something to do with code for the fire department.
For the hammerhead, for getting fire trucks in and out of there.
Yeah.
They have to
So he
have
said
that.
we weren't able to touch that. I don't know if. Also, the north side of that lot is hole 3 of the disc golf course. It's not
Oh.
marked on the map,
Okay.
but there is a basket up there.
Yeah, these are great.
And then Ben also said that when the BMX events are going on, that's where people like to set up their tents. So we'd be stepping on toes, I feel like, if we put the track up there.
No, you're all racers. We all play nice together. Off the track.
All right, Tom?
I was sitting here looking at that, and I was looking at the north side of the BMX track and that spot in there where the road ends. And we've already got power and water back to the BMX track. If it could be put into that spot, looks like it's about the same size. But I don't know. I'd like to see the park board look at it and see if they could come up with an alternate to tearing that out. I'm not opposed to this. I just don't want to tear something up we already got.
Okay.
If we don't have to. And I know they're noisy. I know the mayor said he'd like to have some parks in some other areas, but you don't want that outside of bedroom windows on Saturday morning, so. But I'd like to make a motion, or do I need to make a motion, or just say we send it back to the park board and have them look at it and give us some alternates?
You would need to make a motion.
I would make a motion that we have you look at some alternate sources or locations, and if this is it, this is it. I don't know. I mean, but
So
I'm
you're
not
making-
opposed to it. I would just like to see some options. So,
So just to clean that up, you're making a motion that the council send this back for the park board to review other locations if
Correct,
possible?
correct. And to add to that, if the south end of it would work and you have water and an electric issue and some dirt needs to be hauled in, what are we looking at? Are we looking at a lot or just some minor stuff?
You're talking on the
I don't know.
south side here?
You know, I'm talking about in your options. If you come back and say, we could put it over here, but here's what we got to go do to do it. So,
Okay.
okay.
Randy, did you want a second for discussion?
Yeah, second for discussion. So I know I said I'm supportive of this. I love this idea. I love bringing people in. But the more I hear, I'm talking about the concrete pad and how we could use it for other items, a basketball court, pickleball court or something. And if we can send it back and, look for another location, I'd be fully supportive of it. I think it's an awesome idea.
I know you guys have touched on the basketball courts and the pickleball court. We just had a brand-new regulation-sized basketball court poured on the north, about Fairfield and Grove Park.
Right.
And then at our last park board meeting, we also discussed resurfacing the old tennis court in McLean for pickleball courts. So those two things
Already in the works.
have already
Okay.
been touched on, so.
Okay.
Okay, John?
That's kind of what, I guess, the comparison I was gonna use. I knew you just did the basketball court on Grove and Fairchild. How much did that cost? 15,000?
I think,
No.
I think for the whole project, just off the top of my head, I was thinking 21 or 22.
Yeah, so that's what I'm just thinking. The roller rink's much bigger than that, and I'm just thinking the price of that asset is astronomical.
I know there's kind of both sides on whether it gets used or not, but
Right.
if Alex is able to use this property and he can bring people in and bring money to Park City, I think, in my opinion, that would be a better use of I know I know the concrete's expensive, but you're given a little to get some, so.
Gotcha.
In my personal experience, like I said in here, the track in Wichita gets used every single day, every day. But the problem with that particular facility is we have concrete underneath the whole track, and we get no natural drain. So right now, we got about a foot of water on the track, and so it hasn't been used for a good couple months. But I go by that racetrack just to go by to look, and there's at least 1 to 10 people there every single day. Just out there, as we say, burning batteries down, out there just running laps. So this facility would definitely get used, I would say 7 days a week.
He says, Alex has stated that the track in Wichita is in rough shape also, so if we can have a brand-new facility, maybe get more people interested in the sport and.
I started a business around this. Our local hobby shop, in my opinion, doesn't cater to the racers. Like I said, I've been in business 12 years. I got tired of that, and so I went out and started my own hobby shop, and I'm dedicated to racers. That's all I do. I don't go out and sell the little nickel and dime RC cars. We're playing with the big boys. And so I'm here too, and in this proposal, I'm here for 5 years with, after 3 years, another 5-year extension. I'm here to stay. I don't want to run away. I want this to be my home track.
Okay. Ben?
In this, kicking it back to the park board to look at, if after they examine and look at other places, I know Alex mentioned putting dirt over the cement to keep it. And Mayor, you've expressed concerns, rightly so, with it, the skid steer going over that or anything. But we know that they do these sort of events at other locations with dirt being brought in. Is there something then that we could look at, maybe investigate into see if there's something we can put as a protection over the cement, if that is the best route to do it, to put the dirt on top of that? Is that something we can at least investigate to find as another option?
I could definitely take a look.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the main thing is just looking at the concrete itself, the condition, the thickness, to try to get an idea of what type of equipment you run over it. And you've already expressed some concern with putting concrete over it and getting the best drainage. So if we are gonna be committed to it, that's probably not the best solution, because we've already seen what you see with results from another track doing the same thing. So why would we want to go down that same road? So I think if you're going to commit, you got to commit to it, but you got to realize what you're tearing up.
And it's my understanding that the track is completely built over cement in Emory. So
In
having,
Wichita, it's built over an old tennis court, and they didn't rip any of that concrete, asphalt, whatever it may be underneath. They didn't rip any of it up. They just brought in dirt on top. And so we have no natural drain. And when I was talking about putting dirt over that concrete, really only be about 30 to 40 feet of dirt, outwise. And my idea was to raise that end up, and so it would natural drain back towards that hedgerow there.
Okay.
Still get your natural drain, but right now, like with the track in Wichita, we don't have that ability to do that.
Okay. Melvin?
I like the idea of that RC cars coming here. I don't like tearing out that concrete. Is there a chance that you can move the skateboard park to maybe the old swimming pool or the tennis court, and then maybe put it over there, right beside there, to the east? Or I guess it'd be to the south of there?
What do you mean?
Moving the skateboard, the pieces of equipment, skateboard?
I think if we did that, we'd still run into having to tear up the concrete issue.
Well, there's not near as much there, though.
So where are you proposing to put it?
Just south of this roller rink here.
You're talking about getting rid of the skateboard park.
No, I'm saying move it to either the
Relocate the
swimming pool, relocate it to the swimming pool, or to the tennis court. And then use that there.
Well, I think what we have now is just clear direction from the council. We just want you to go back, explore other options, and then come back to us and tell us if this is it, or if you think we've got a workaround or some other way we can do that. Okay? Sean?
But please bring it back.
We will.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank
you very much,
Thank you,
Alex.
appreciate it.
That will bring us to item C, which is consider a proposal from K.E. Miller Engineering for the study of Old Lawrence Road and the cost estimate. Dana?
Yes, at the last council meeting on January 22nd, Jack showed several visuals regarding the issues on Old Lawrence Road in that corridor. The council voted to go to K.E. Miller and have him give us a proposal. That proposal is in your packet and is here this evening, and he can address the council regarding the proposal.
Does anybody have any questions for Kurt or Dana on this? I think it's pretty clear cut. Ben?
I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve a proposal from K.E. Miller Engineering in the amount of $8,000 to be paid from the Special Streets and Highway Funds for the study of Old Lawrence Road north of 45th Street North and the cost estimate of those improvements.
And Jim?
Yeah, we need to examine a fix, so I would second that.
Okay, Tom?
I will be abstaining from this vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstain.
Abstain.
And that passes 7-0-1. That brings us to item D, which is consider the final plat for the CNR Ranch located on the southwest corner of North Hydraulic and 69th Street. Dana?
Yes, at the Planning Commission meeting on January 28th, the Planning Commission approved this final plat to be submitted to the council for your approval. As the mayor has indicated, the location, you have in front of you the plat, and you also have the drainage plan that was submitted as well. The purpose of this is to split into two different lots. The reason is because there's going to be a new house that is going to be built, and for financing purposes, it was important to get it to a smaller area of land. This evening, Matthew Combs is here, and his engineer, Logan Mills, is also here, and they will be able to answer any questions that you would have.
Logan, you signed up to speak. If you want to go ahead and come on up.
Yeah, good evening, council. Logan Mills with Certified Engineering Design at 1935 West Maple in Wichita. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I can stand for any questions. I think Dana answered everything that we had. So if you got any questions for me, and as well as Matt, we can stand for any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Ben?
Make a motion here that we approve the final plat for CNR Ranch as recommended by the Planning Commission.
And Melvin?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item E, which is consider an ordinance amending sections 15-4119 of the municipal code relating to the sewer charges. Dee?
Yes, this item is bringing us up to what our actual practice is at the city. The ordinance currently states that after the initial 3,000 gallons of usage that is in the base charge, after that, there are increments of 1,000 that residents would be charged for. However, our practice is to charge them for 100 gallons, which is in their best interest because, for example, if somebody only used 100 over that 3,000, they're paying for 100 instead of paying for 1,000. So this just brings the wording into what we're actually doing in our billing.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Dee? Ben?
I make a motion to approve this ordinance amending section 15-419 of the municipal code of the city of Park City, Kansas relating to sewer service charges and repealing the original said section 15-419.
Is there a second? Jim?
Second that.
And Dee, do you have that ordinance number?
1054, excuse me, 2019.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dee, would you call the roll?
Olin Hare.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Vince Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 8-0. That brings us to item F, which is consider a resolution determining the advisability of water improvements in Phase 5 High Ridge Second Edition. Dana?
Thank you, Mayor. In the meeting of November 13th, 2018, the council approved several resolutions of advisability for Phase 5 High Ridge Second Edition. Those included resolutions of advisability for paving, sanitary sewer, off-site paving, and water. The water had some area that was missing in the resolution, and so this has been amended so that it is correct now. So that is why it is before you this evening.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Dana? Jim?
No questions, so I would move that we approve the resolution determining the advisability of water improvements for Phase 5 High Ridge Second Edition.
John, did you light up? Night.
I did second.
Okay.
Would you mind including subject to receiving letter of credit in your motion, please?
Yes, subject to
Second read.
receiving the
Thank you.
letter of credit.
Okay, and that resolution number?
1022, 2019.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dee, would you call the roll?
John O'Hare.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Vince Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that resolution passes 8-0. That brings us to item G, which is consider a proposal from K.E. Miller Engineering for consulting services on general municipal engineering matters. Doug?
Mayor and council, this is an action that staff is asking you to consider, mainly because we no longer have Jack, who provided us with significant engineering expertise, and he consulted with himself on engineering matters quite regularly. We don't have that anymore. K.E. Miller is really familiar with our community, does a lot of work here. This is a kind of an as-needed contract. He's provided Dana with fees that would be charged for varying levels of inquiry that we might, Dana specifically, might need to make on engineering matters. And this is I say an as-needed matter. There is no specific amount of money to be expended. It's on an as-needed basis and a per-hour charge, and those are in front of you, I believe, the different per-hour charges. So I think staff would recommend that you approve this agreement and authorize staff to utilize K.E. Miller and his firm on an as-needed basis for these general engineering matters.
Thanks, Doug. George?
I move to approve the proposal from K.E. Miller Engineering for an hourly fee for consulting services related to general municipal engineering matters.
And Ben?
I'd like to second for discussion.
Go ahead.
Have we, and I understand there's a history here with K.E. Miller in the city, but have we looked at any other engineering firms?
We have not. Again, this is what I would suggest to you is a stopgap. We're at this point, kind of moving towards a new administrator, and I would think that the new administrator would have some significant input to be made in some of these matters. How to handle a city engineer or those kinds of services when they're needed. I suspect most of you are generally familiar that lots of the engineering services that are done on development are done and paid for, and those decisions are made by developers. This is really related to our streets, our bridges, and inspection services that we need. locating utilities, that's kind of a real, seems like a simple thing, but right now there's nobody to do that. So this was more of a, I don't want to call it an emergency, but we needed somebody that we could, once Jack left last week, we needed somebody we could get on the phone with.
This is, it would basically be, I don't want to say necessarily temporary, but it would be something in the meantime until a position's filled.
It's an interim process to get
Yes,
it
absolutely.
until a final resolution.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure, my concern would be that if we have a council member that has to abstain because of conflicting interests, I wouldn't want that to be a necessary continuing ongoing thing for that.
Okay, Tom?
I'd just like to say I need to abstain again. I work part-time for this firm occasionally. I don't want it to be appearance of conflict of interest.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstain.
Abstain.
And that passes 7-0-1. That brings us to item H, which is consider bids for High Ridge Second Edition Phase 4 paving. Dana?
Yes, on February 7th, there was a bid letting here at the City Administration Building for the High Ridge 2 Second Edition for paving. You have the bids for the project in front of you. In addition, the bid tab is in your packet. The low bid was APAC for $137,865.75. It is a good bid, and we would recommend your approval as the lowest good bid.
John?
Item H, I would make a motion that we approve said bid for $137,865.75 to APAC.
For High Ridge Second Edition
Sorry,
Phase
yes.
4. Okay.
Yes.
Jim?
And I would second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. George?
Well, I would just notice that these bids are way under what the engineer's estimate is. I just wonder if there's a reason for that.
Dan?
Kirk Miller is here this evening, and he can address that. I will tell you that we looked at that and had quite a conversation when we saw that. And there were the last things that were bid here in the city, the bids were considerably under that. So it didn't seem that it was a bad bid. It just, maybe people are hungry right now.
Okay.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item I, which is consider the purchase of two 2019 Ford Police Interceptor SUV patrol vehicles and installed emergency equipment. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This evening, what I would like to propose to you is in your packet is a request to purchase two new Ford Explorer patrol vehicles and the installed emergency equipment. The police department has, on average, we've asked for and purchased two vehicles per year for many years now. Occasionally, we've asked for permission to purchase three in order to catch up on some of the special vehicles, unmarked vehicles, and so forth. Last year, primarily because of our shortage of personnel, our mileage was down, and if you recall, I only asked for one vehicle last year for that reason. I felt like we could get by. However, our mileage is starting to creep up on the fleet in general, and so we're seeing that if we only purchase one or if we purchase none this year, then the mileage is going to begin to catch up with us, where we'll need to purchase perhaps three or even more down the road in 1 year. I know I've been asked in the past, are there things we could do to reduce the cost, to try to stretch the fleet? We did increase the mileage that we trade them out to an average of 80,000 as opposed to 70,000. We used to do that, and we really have had pretty good luck with that. The vehicles that we have now, we haven't had a great deal of problems with them. The Explorers are a good vehicle. They're all-wheel drive. That's one of the best things about them, frankly. It's also something that adds to the complexity of the mechanics, and so we don't want to push the mileage to the point where we begin to experience problems with the transmission and the all-wheel drive components, because those are very expensive. The equipment that's included, you notice the price of that, it's gone up, and that's for a number of reasons. The primary reason is our upfitter, the person that installs our equipment. In the past, excuse me, we've used an individual. We've switched to using a professional company to do that over the last couple of years. The reason for that was the problems that we've had. Frankly, we've had problems with, it's become more specialized. It used to be something people would kind of do as a side job and so forth. Vehicles themselves are becoming more like a computer, as you know. And so when you start messing with the wiring and so forth, it's not simple like it used to be. If you work on your own car, you probably experienced that. So we've had to go to a professional upfitter, and we've had very good luck with them since we've used them, but the cost has gone up as well. Included in the budget is the amount that I've asked for this year. So this is included in the police department's 2019 budget. We only got one bid, and to explain the reason for this, first of all, there's only one place where we can even get a 2019 Ford Explorer. If we had waited till now to do anything, I talked to Rusty Eck Ford. I included the communication in the packet here. Everybody's out. All the 2019s have been sold, or they're ordered and spoken for. So Shawnee Mission Ford is the state contract for the state of Kansas. They always have the best price. In fact, a lot of dealerships won't even really bid because of that. They don't want to waste the time doing it. So Rusty Eck Ford used to have the state contract. Shawnee Mission has had it the last couple of years. That's where we purchased the vehicle last year. The salesperson gave us a heads up last year that this was going to happen, where the 2019 year model would run out. Ford's retooling. They're going to come out with a new Ford Explorer that's significantly different. One downside to that, they're going to be $5,000 more per vehicle. We've been warned about that. But if we were to order a 2020, aside from the fact that they're around $5,000 more, we would have to wait until late this year for delivery. Shawnee Mission gave us the option to tell them what we wanted. They ordered it on an unofficial basis for us. We're not committed to that legally. That's because they know they can sell it if we don't buy these. They've got people lined up to buy them. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Jim?
I honestly don't have any questions. I think you did a great job of managing relationships to find a way to track down a couple of 19s and save us some money here. So I would go so far as to move that we approve the purchase of the two 2019 Ford Police Interceptor SUV patrol vehicles and installed emergency equipment as you proposed.
And that would be from Shawnee Mission Ford?
From Shawnee Mission Ford, yes.
Okay. For the $94,835 to be paid out of the police department budget?
Yes, yeah, that should be added. $94,835 out of the police department budget.
Okay. Ben?
I second that.
Tom?
I just wonder the way everything's going, what we're going to do to try to control some of these costs in the future. Because, I mean, we won't be able to afford you in a few years. So, I know you got to have cars, but, I mean, there's got to be some kind of relief somewhere.
We're going to continue to reevaluate. You know, we do this on a regular basis, but we're going to continue to reevaluate while we drive. You know, we've had good luck with these vehicles.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that the cost of creeping, and it's horrendous, so it's just.
I understand, and that's something we're going to continue to have to reevaluate that.
Okay.
Hey, George?
Hey, along with what Tom was saying, I was sitting here just reminiscing. I remember when I caught flack for giving $24,000 for a Chevy Tahoe. Are you going to replace, are you going to get rid of two vehicles when you get these?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Melvin?
What are you gonna do with the old vehicles? Are you gonna sell them Purple Wave or try to trade them in?
That's our
or-
intention, is to sell them on Purple Wave.
So do you think you get more money out of them at 80,000 than, say, if you ran these things to 100,000?
We've had, actually, we've had tremendously good luck with Purple Wave. You know, we only started using them maybe 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago. Before that, we took them to the auction here, and we got very little for them. So Purple Wave has been a great resource for us.
Have you checked into trading them in or anything? Or what do they give you for them?
No, they really don't. With the state contract, they don't even offer that option. And honestly, I think we get a lot more for them selling them outright at auction.
All right, thank you.
And just to point out, if everybody remembers past history, what we do, we put them in Purple Wave. Usually the chief comes back and we put those funds back into capital improvement so that we have additional funds for later purposes. So those monies are coming back, but you got to have this first initial out-of-pocket expense to make that happen. So we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Chief.
Mr. Mayor.
Next item is item J, which is consider a full-time IT position. Here lately, as we continue to grow as a city and go through the pains of, you know, a lot of it is in the police department. I think we've had numerous conversations about 80% of the technology lies on that side, and we have technology issues on the administration side, and we've all sat down this week, and while we've had issues with computers not working right and contracting help, we thought it would be wise to come to the council and ask about adding a full-time IT position to keep us afloat. Dana, did you want to go?
Sure, as the mayor has let you know, it has been a difficult time between having our Cox down, our Encode down, and if those are down, we really cannot help anybody at the front desk. We can't access anything, and it's spread across the entire city. 80%, as he's indicated, for the police department, 20% on ours. So what we were looking at is if we continue to contract the way in which we have been, the problem with that is that when we need someone, they're not available. So we were looking at what do we do as far as, do we look at a different contract? Do we look at bringing someone on full-time? We've reached out to some of the cities that we reach out to for our salary survey. And I asked them, do you have an IT person? What do you do for IT? We've gotten job descriptions and we've looked at salaries as well. And our thought at this point is that what would really fit the city best at this time would be to bring someone that is available to us when we're needing that, because it's an immediate need when we have it. And because of the specialty and the knowledge, if we contract with a company, we get someone different each time. So we looked at what we would do to pay for the position, and we've been working hand in hand as a team. We always appreciate it when we work as a team. So how would we look at paying for this? And what we would look at is for what we budgeted for 2019. We talked about adding a code enforcement position. Would we be able to do that without a vehicle? So the police department has looked at scheduling and looking at how we can alternate those things, not purchasing a vehicle. For half a year, we would look at that administrative lieutenant position, not fill that administrative lieutenant position for half a year. And then what we are currently spending on our IT, we would roll all of those things together. And so what we were asking is, would you consider bringing someone on full-time that would meet the needs of the city? And when we look at specialty issues, I think that the chief can certainly tell you some of the extensive specialty issues that he has and how it kind of stops the police department in their tracks if they have an issue with IT.
Yeah, before, George, did you have a comment?
Yeah, what kind of money are we looking at, number one? And my second question is, how many employees does we currently have in the city? Full-time employees?
If we were filled, we're really going to be at that 50 point, where if that's what you're looking at, is are we
That's
going
what
to
I'm
hit the
looking
50?
at, yes.
Yeah, we're going to be hitting that 50 mark, which, you know, some of the other laws are going to come on board and some of those things where you hit 50. But as far as what are we looking at as far as money-wise, we're looking at around $30 an hour. If you look at what it looks like the scales are that's coming back from the other cities, that's about $95,000 for a full-time position with benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, go ahead.
One of the issues that, as Dana alluded to, one of the issues that the police department faces with IT services or computer services is that they're, for us, they're different. They're specialized, and there are a lot of things about them in terms of the security that a person has to know. Also, any employee that comes out here has to have a background check done on them right off the bat. I know it predates my employment here at the city. I've been here almost 6 years, but it wasn't that long before I came that the city did use a contract service, and I heard stories about that a lot after I came, that they would send a different employee every time we called, and then they would spend our money on an hourly basis learning how things were set up. So we were paying money to educate them, and then they'd send a different person every time. So then we tried to ask them to send, would you send the same person? So they sent 1 or 2 people that were the same ones, and that worked for a little while. And then apparently they took a job somewhere else, and then we were right back to square one again. So the things that we have are, and we're not any different than the other police departments around us. They experience the same thing. The specialized nature of the things that we have in computers is such that anybody that comes in here has to educate themselves about all of this, and that ends up wasting a lot of time and money as well if we don't have the same employee on a regular basis.
Dee, did you want to add anything from the?
I don't really have anything to add, but as Dana had mentioned, the amount that we're already spending combined with not purchasing the code enforcement vehicle and the half a position will more than cover this.
So that's one of the things we're looking at, is how do we cover it for the rest of the year? And then, of course, when we go into next year, we'll just have to look at budgeting and how we apply the budget to this. So what we're doing is coming to tonight with this need that we've had, and we've had multiple issues within the last week and a half that has caused a lot of heartache in trying to get things taken care of, and really kind of spurred on the conversation around this. So what we're looking for is council's approval for this, and then if council wants to approve this, then Dana's going to work together to put together a job description, and we'll come back and we'll bring that back to you. We don't want to, kind of waste time doing something if the council's not interested in this as an option. George?
Well, I would fully support this because I know it's important that you have consistency. And if you're dealing with contracts, it's like the chief said, you're going to get different people. And with what they're dealing with, the information and everything, I think it's important to be consistent with this and have the same person doing it all the time. I'd fully support this.
And the other thing you think too, we've tried implementing some new items, Dude Solutions, another thing, and how that's going to work in the public works side, and that really hasn't got off the ground. But we need somebody that has IT experience that can help us. And if anybody can, kind of see what's on the horizon, the IT is just going to become more pronounced of a problem that we're going to have to deal with. And 20 years ago, you wouldn't even have this discussion. You get an update on Windows, but we're trying to keep all of our staff's computers up, make sure that they're properly you know, got the proper updates going to them, they're functioning after that, printers are printing where they're supposed to be, and then everything that's really on the police department side. And that includes the stuff within their video system, within their cameras, and make sure that it's uploading and working properly like it should. Ben?
I have a question just real quick and then a follow-up to that. There, on the police side, we're looking at using funds for what are we cutting, position are we cutting to recover the funds this year?
What we said was, we have an administrative lieutenant position that we would not fill for the first half of the year, so those funds would be saved. We also budgeted for a third code enforcement officer, including equipment and including a vehicle, and that was one of the items that the council was concerned about, was the purchase of another vehicle, and could we do it with 3? The chief has looked into it and found a way that we can do it with 2 vehicles, so we would not spend the money on the third, and then the current contracts that we're spending now. So you're pulling from contracts, an unfilled position, and a vehicle non-purchase that would make sure, and like Dee said, would more than sufficiently cover this position.
I guess my thought would be is we're having a hard time currently keeping 2 code enforcement officers hired. Would we consider just that money that we've set aside for that third code enforcement officer, using that to fund rather than cutting a first half of the year administrative lieutenant position? I mean, it seemed to make sense that we would use the funds from a position that we're not even able to come close to hiring at this point, rather than cutting from someone that comes from our public safety.
And that's what we're saying, we don't have anybody to fill that position for the first half of the year.
But for a position there that we don't have, or we're not going to be able to even hire.
Same thing. It's the exact same thing.
So there's no possibility of hiring an administrative lieutenant anytime in the first 6 years?
We're going to forego that for the first 6 months. That helps offset the
But we don't,
cost.
what I'm asking is, do we need to do that versus just taking the money from the code enforcement officer position that's not going to be filled?
Well, you're probably going to see savings there as well. It's just in the way you're defining it. Are we going to have that other code enforcement position filled? Probably not. It's another savings. We also have a police officer position that's not filled either.
And that cannot be filled, that's what I'm asking.
Right.
And have the ability to be filled in the next 5 years.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're saying.
That's what I'm asking there, is if we don't have the ability to fund it, that's one thing, but if we have the ability to fill that, fill, not fund. If we have the ability to fill that position, why would we cut the funds from that when we have the money available? If you're saying, and the chief is saying that we don't have anybody that could fill that position, I'm just asking if there's an ability to do so, and then take the money from that third code enforcement officer rather than change that. That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I mean, I don't know any other way to explain it to you.
So there's no one we can hire for the chief, for the police department?
We're not going to have that position filled. Tom?
This would be a full-time position. Is there full-time IT work? Or will this person be looking for things to do part-time?
There is a lot of work in addition to what has been described. This whole building is filled with technology. So yes, we do believe that we will keep the person filled. Our concern is to make sure that we don't have more hours than 40 hours per week for this individual.
And that's really been one of the things we've talked about is IT issues don't happen 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Right, no, I understand that. But I know the guy that we had on contract that was working part-time for us was pretty busy, so.
Yeah.
The one that left a couple weeks ago, so.
Yes, but that's a little bit confusing as to how you're describing that, because what he was working part-time was not IT.
Okay.
What he was working part-time was Channel 7's social media. That position is currently posted.
Okay.
And he is continuing to do some things for us long distance that he can do in,
So
the
that's a
long distance.
different job then?
That's a different position.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. George?
Well, I heard a lot of conversation about the police department. I assume this IT person, the cost is going to be spread throughout the city's budget, isn't it? I mean, administration and the other people going to be using them, or is the police department going to pay for all of it?
We're planning on,
For 2019, we're looking at that cost. And the chief has graciously given us these cuts within his budget to cover it for 2019. because of how important it is.
Okay.
Now, when we look at 2020, that's a budget thing, and we'll have to look at how we do that.
Okay, well, I was hearing that conversation, and I just wanted to get it straight in my mind. That's fine.
Okay? Brandy?
Has there been a motion?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve hiring a full-time IT position as
Tom?
presented.
Okay, Tom?
I'll second that. And what we're doing is we're making a motion, not necessarily to hire somebody yet, but to pursue that, right?
Yeah, to pursue it.
You said something about bringing a job
We'll
description
pursue
back.
that, and then we'll get the job description together, and it will probably be in the consent agenda.
Okay, because I didn't want to come to the next meeting and find out we had somebody hired and didn't do anything, so.
No, we still have to put together that. We're gonna have to
Okay.
post for the position. So, normal practices. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Brings us to item K. I would ask for an executive session for matters relating to non-elected personnel for 25 minutes to include the governing body and the city attorney. John?
So moved.
Is there a second? Brandy? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. It's 8:24. All right, we're back from executive session where no binding action was taken. I would like to ask for an additional 45 minutes in executive session to continue with the governing body and the city attorney for matters not related to non-elected personnel. Ben?
So moved.
John?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-1. All right, we are back from our executive session where no binding action was taken. I would ask again for another 40-minute executive session to discuss matters relating to non-elected personnel, including the governing body and the city attorney. Tom?
Could we make this 30 instead of 40, and if we need additional, we do it again?
I would still go for 40, and if we come back early, we can take a recess and go to get something to drink or something in between. Ben?
I would echo Tom's sentiment there on that.
All right, make the motion.
I make a motion that we go to executive session for 30 minutes to continue conversation related to non-elected personnel,
Including the governing body?
including the governing body and city attorney. 30 minutes.
Okay, is there a
30.
second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. All right, we're back from executive session where no binding action was taken. Ben?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion that we take no action on item L.
And George?
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Tom?
I'll second that.
Tom, we already got a second.
Pardon?
We already got a second.
Okay.
Got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 8-0. And we'll move on to governing body reports, and we'll start with Jim.
Sorry, trying to reset my brain to where we are here. Just remember the flag unveiling on Saturday, and look forward to seeing everybody there.
Okay, Randy?
I have nothing.
George?
This is the latest council meetings went in months.
Months.
That's all I have.
Tom?
I don't have anything.
Melvin? Ben?
Come on out Saturday. Just wanted to get some excitement in here. That's it.
George?
I don't have anything.
John?
I'll see everybody Saturday. I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
And Ben?
Second.
Not Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes 8-0.